Welcome to the We Watch This Movie podcast, where we sit down and dissect the latest and greatest in films, whether they're new or old. I'm Dan, the Nolan connoisseur, aka Dan Allen Movies on Instagram and Letterboxd, joined by the man with over 2,178 films on his watch list and a lover of all things Lynch. Jackson, how are you today?
Talking about?
I fucked it. Hang on a second. See, I had this perfectly lined up for I had it perfectly lined up for the joke.
Dan, I'm amazing.
Amazing. I know why you are, because this is a film you wanted to review for a while now. And we're talking about Mulholland Drive, 2001 David Lynch cult classic. You were very keen on us reviewing this. I hadn't seen it, and we're going to discuss all things the movie. Before we do, we just want to say a quick thank you to everyone who's been listening to the podcast over the last month or so, as we're all in lockdown, staying safe. Always good to catch up on some of that watch list, isn't it, Jackson?
It is, and we're so thankful that all of our listeners worldwide are staying home and tuning in. How many countries are we in now? 26? 27?
42, Jackson.
42 countries. Last I heard it was at 5.
Argentina, France, Australia, New Zealand, USA, everywhere. We're global, Jackson. We want to get it to 50. We're 8 away.
8 away. My God. Do you happen to know anyone in Jordan or Libya? Maybe Greece, perhaps?
I'll pull a few strings and hopefully...
I knew I could count on you.
I can't do this. So thanks as always, guys. Today, as you know, Mulholland Drive. We're going to get into it. Jackson, are you ready?
Oh boy. Strap on in, Dan. This is going to be one hell of an episode.
This could be a long one.
I hope you've got that cup of coffee.
Where's this going?
Very strange day.
Getting stranger.
Silencio.
What's Mulholland Drive about? Dan, I'm so glad you asked. Along Mulholland Drive, nothing is what it seems. In the unreal universe of Los Angeles, the city bears its schizophrenic nature, an uneasy blend of innocence and corruption, love and loneliness, beauty and depravity. A woman is left with amnesia following a car accident. An aspiring young actress finds her staying in her aunt's home. The puzzle begins to unfold, propelling us through a mysterious labyrinth of sensual experiences until we arrive at the intersection of dreams and nightmares. The tagline here, a love story in the city of dreams. Dan, you just watched Mulholland Drive for the first time. Let's hear your quick thoughts before we get right into it.
Before we get into spoilers, quick thoughts. First time viewing. Jackson, what was your viewing again? How many times had you seen the film?
We're probably at 9 or 10.
Wow, yeah. This is my first viewing 20 years later, 19 years later. And I got to say, it was definitely an experience, Jackson. I want to preface by saying to all the listeners out here, this movie is not for everyone. It's 2.5 hours long. Some would consider it slow. It is a movie where you need to be thinking at all times. You can't step away for even a moment, or you may be lost for the rest of the ride. If you don't have a good attention span, this isn't going to be for you. But for those cinephiles out there, I know a lot of you listen to us, all the big movie lovers, you've probably already seen it, but if you haven't, this is for you. This is a movie where you can dissect and analyze every single scene for about 30 minutes each, and we're hopefully not going to go that long today, but it was a experience I haven't had, Jackson, before.
Wow.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Let's say, look, 2.5 hours. I really enjoyed the first, I want to say 2 hours, 2 hours 10 minutes, and then the last 20 minutes really challenges challenges you and what you've been watching, and it for some, including me, it fell apart. Not in a sense of the story fell apart. my mind fell apart where I didn't know what was going on, and I had to really think about it after the credits were rolling. What did I just watch? How do all the pieces align? And we'll go into all the different theories that are here, but there's different interpretations as well. So it's not just, I got something out of it different to what you had, to what, a couple of other friends have gotten out of it. So it's just one of those films that you can just dissect for hours and hours. I really enjoyed it. What was it like for you on your 9th, 10th viewing?
I'm so glad we called an audible and we pushed back our original recording for this week, which was due to be Parasite, and replaced it with this. I'm really interested, Dan, and we're going to get into it, on how you stumbled across watching this. Of all the 2,178 films on my watch list, you decided that this is the one you were going to watch and decide, oh my goodness, we have to record about. On the 9th or 10th watch, it's still as fascinating, as captivating as ever. It's a movie that challenges, grips, spellbinds. It really does it all. And you said you don't want to go in and do half an hour per scene, but hey, I've got enough notes here that looks like we will.
How many notes have you got there? Tell the audience.
Look, it took me about 6 hours to watch the film, and I've got 10 pages of beat by beat notes to go through. I'm a lover of Lynch. I love his films. I love his work. If you haven't seen this film, I can't recommend it enough. Great point. Yes, it's not for everyone.
Can you recommend this to the average
material.
goer, Jackson? To the average moviegoer? Can you really recommend this?
Yes.
You can. Okay.
Yes.
See,
I'll recommend the average film goer watches this before watching something like The Prestige. I think this is a stronger watch than a Chris Nolan film, and I know you love that director so much.
Never heard of him.
This is as much as someone like Christopher Nolan, a modern day director, is a visionary. I believe Lynch is just another step ahead, and every frame, every sound coming from the screen, this is pure cinema as it's meant to be experienced on the big screen. I've been lucky enough to see it. I hope you do someday, Dan. You can appreciate the movie anymore. This is a true masterpiece.
Yeah, I
masterpiece.
I hear that word thrown around a lot for this film, masterpiece. I'm not quite at that level. Maybe I am upon a third or fourth watching. I know I'll come back to this movie at some point because it is very rewatchable. It reminds me of The Prestige in that it's very ambiguous, and you've got to put the pieces of the puzzle together yourself. Probably a bit more ambiguous than The Prestige, though. This is where you and me disagree. Whereas Nolan's films are very... You can put the pieces together. They're there to be put together. This, you've really got to think outside the box, especially with some of the dream sequences and how many scenes are there to get through. But it's definitely a cinematic experience, and I'll definitely be going through David Lynch's catalogue of films after this one. I'm glad we're going to discuss it today, Jackson.
I can't wait to join you on that journey. You might not be using the M word yet, but in about 4 hours' time, once we've finished recording this podcast, I might have changed your mind.
Before we head into spoilers, why don't we just give final quick thoughts, and then we'll move into spoiler territory.
Masterpiece.
Over. For me, like I said, if your attention span isn't high, maybe I don't want to say give this a miss, but be cautious going in that this is a long haul. You've got to be engaged with it, and you've got to take everything in, and you may have to rewatch. This is the thing, it's so rewatchable as well. It's a film that I can't wait to talk about. So stuff it, let's go. I recommend it as well, Jackson.
Let's get into it.
Spoiler alert. So, where do we start? I mean, I thought The Prestige we were going to be all over the place. I mean, how do you start with this? Do you start with that last 20 minutes? I feel like we have to start with that and work our way backwards.
Yeah, hey, why not? Let's do it. Let's do a story in reverse. Very reminiscent of a Nolan movie. What is it? Memento. Nolan's best. Anyway, so let's get right into...
Nolan's best?
Let's get right into what might be actually going on in Mulholland Drive. Now, you've prefaced this segment with our spoiler alert. if you haven't watched this, sorry, we are going to spoil the shit out of it. Dan, what do you reckon's going on here? Who is Naomi Watts? Who is Laura Harring? What are we watching?
So what I got out of it was, right at the start, we see a first-person view of a character hitting a pillow. I didn't think much of it at first, but once I saw the ending and everything that came about, it alarmed me that, did we just watch a dream take place? Did we watch her dream? And that's what I got out of it. I believe most of the movie is her dream and her interpretation of these characters from that last scene where she's at that party. All those people, all those characters in that scene end up being in this story that we've seen across this 2 hours. So I believe it's all a dream. She obviously is an actress herself. That her rival is Camilla Rhodes, of course, which is
Camilla her rival? Is Camilla not her lover?
Well, I didn't look at it that way. You've got a different approach?
Yeah, I'm of the mind that what we see on screen, at least as far as the last 20 minutes, the third act with Diane Selwyn, played by Naomi Watts, I'm of the mind that she was in some sort of relationship with Camilla Rhodes. Having done some research into some pretty far-fetched theories out there, some theories suggest that both Camilla and Diane had lived together, as both were up and coming within Hollywood. They'd become friends after an audition on a film called The Sylvia North Story, and we hear that title pop up twice throughout the film. They became friends. They had lived together. They entered this romantic gay relationship, and now that Camilla's had a touch of fame and she's fallen in love with this very charming director, Adam Kesher, played by Justin Theroux, she's now pushing Diane to the side, and Diane's now reliving some childhood trauma that's happening to come out because, again, she doesn't feel worthy. She hasn't quite made it. Her own dreams haven't quite paid off like she wanted. That's why I believe that they were in a romantic relationship. But please continue. This is your first ever watch. I've gone through this film with not just a fine-tooth comb, but heck, a pair of pliers. So I want to hear what you've got.
Yeah, so I believe she was a disgruntled sort of actress that never made on the big screen for whatever reason, and we're playing out the different reasons why Diane never made it, whether it was Camilla always taking the role off her, the jealousy there between those two characters, or just the powers that be in Hollywood that she may have had the talent, but she didn't have whatever it was, the pull and the power to secure those roles. So yeah, that's the story that I saw unfolding within our eyes, and then obviously she kills herself at the end, and it's broken timelines. It's Nolan style with broken timelines, and I'd love to see those two chat about films for an hour. That would be an interesting watch.
If that were to ever happen, who knows? Maybe it'll be a little bit like this podcast.
Yeah, two experts in their field going at it.
Maybe not so much the E word, but that's
so.
Okay.
Is that a fair enough representation? Have I missed anything, Jackson?
I do like your interpretation. If that's what really went on as far as the third act's concerned, and that kind of bleeds into the rest of the film, how do we end up with what plays out for the first 2 hours? Let's start hearing about your interpretation there. How does Camilla Rhodes become Rita? How does Diane Selwyn become Betty Elms? How does Adam Kesher's whole character seem to change? Take me through that a bit.
Well, I believe that
and why Diane finally dies. I want to hear your thoughts, because you're pretty non-blanche there, saying that Diane finally kills herself. Why?
I believe Adam Kesher, Justin Theroux's character, she is that character. That's just her. She has made these characters in her mind, in this dream, all these different characters. She's picked them from this dinner, from this party at the end of the film that we see. All those different characters, they've all been placed into this dream, especially like if you look at the owner of the landlord, she was his mother. So they're all connected, and she's just placed them in this world, and that's what I like. I just think everything is a representation of what she's gone through in Hollywood. Am I wrong?
You're right. I believe it goes deeper. So you consider that Diane is using Adam Kesher throughout what we see in the first 2 hours of the film, throughout her entire dreamscape, this entire world she's escaping to, Adam Kesha is an extension of her. She puts Adam Kesha through absolute complete hell, where we see him being cheated on by his wife with the pool man, played by Billy Ray Cyrus, which I know is a cameo that had you laughing out loud.
Well, I text you halfway through, and I'm like, "What have you got me watching?" Billy Ray Cyrus halfway through. I got no idea what's going on. But I'm enjoying myself.
It's funny. It's funny how that sequence comes about, because Diane just overhears at this dinner party in the final minutes of the movie that Adam Kesha says he got the pool and the wife got the pool man. So he's clearly going through a divorce. That's how he falls in love with Camilla, we suppose. And so in Diane's dream world, well, now Adam can go through the hell of walking in on the wife with the pool man. Then he gets beaten up by the mobsters. Then he's dealing with these film executives who are gonna take over production, and finally he's forced to cast a woman that he doesn't supposedly want. He just wants firm control over his movie. He's forced to cast this woman whose name, despite being a totally different character, is Camilla Rhodes. So for me, Diane's putting Adam through the same hell that she believes she's going through, the same trauma, because she sees him as having stolen away Camilla from her life. Diane wants Adam to suffer.
Yeah, I can see that.
Adam's mother as well, Coco. What do you reckon's going on there? Why her?
I didn't see the connection there. There's a lot of unanswered questions within this film, and that's why I said at the top of the show that if you like films that give you all the answers, this isn't the one for you, because this leaves you with more questions than answers upon first viewing. I mean, you've watched it 8 or 9 times now, so you've got a real good grip on it. I'm looking forward to my second watching, actually. But her character, I didn't see a connection there. Tell me your theory.
What is her character wearing throughout the movie? We're really going to get to the nitty gritty here, because there's some interesting points.
Some sort of robes with some patterns on them. Am I wrong?
Yeah, what color?
I think it was red or black.
Yeah, it was red or black. Who else wears red or black throughout the first 2 hours of the film?
Diane.
Is it? Well, Diane.
Well,
I
Betty,
suppose Diane
Betty,
does, but
Betty.
It's Rita. So Betty in the first 2 hours of the movie is draped mainly in a pink, and pink seems to show up as, I mean, it's kind of pink scene opposite. Pink is often thought of as quite innocent and not as this real violent aspect. Yet we see Betty wearing pink quite often, and she eventually loses the pink after going for her audition, which we'll touch on a little bit later. And also, Adam Kesha uses pink paint when he is destroying his wife's jewelry. Now, red and black pops up in Rita, and it's also worn by Camilla at the very end of the film. This is just another extension of, there's lots of play on shadows and mirrors throughout the picture. Everyone seems to have a mirror character. So I guess Coco is Rita and Camilla's mirror, as this kind of older actress, this older version of someone who's stuck around Hollywood and might also be another has-been. Do you notice how in many of these shots we get these extreme close-ups of eyes exchanging glances, and it's always between someone with blonde hair and blue eyes?
Why is that?
The other character will be a brunette with brown eyes. For me, that's part of Diane's obsession with Camilla bleeding into her dreams. It doesn't matter which characters are looking at one another. It's always Diane looking inward, and she's always reflecting her relationship with Camilla onto someone else. So let's talk about Adam Kesha for a moment here. If Adam is Diane in the dream world and he's staring back at Betty, does that make Betty Camilla?
Maybe, but then that doesn't make sense, because Camilla comes up to the stage and performs and gets chosen.
But that's not Camilla. That's a whole nother actress. You see what I mean?
Oh, right. Okay. Are you sure? He said that's the one.
Correct. So in the dreamscape, this character's called Camilla Rhodes, but it's a whole nother looking girl. It's a girl who looks almost identical to Betty. She's also got blonde eyes, blue hair. She's another Hollywood looking starlet,
right.
but it's someone else altogether. So if Diane is Adam Kesha and Betty is actually the real Camilla Rhodes, who's Rita? Because she looks identical to Camilla.
Rita is... Who is Rita?
Well, Rita is Diane, except she looks like Camilla.
Jesus. We are going to...
This should be live right now.
This is crazy.
Like,
I mean, people are listening to us now, Jackson, going, what the F are these guys talking about? I watched the film and I thought I got it. I thought I got this film. Shit. No, it's... I understand what you're saying there. That's an interesting perspective. You might be reading into it a little bit too far. But then again, David Lynch... How far does this guy go? We know he goes very far in some of his symbolic nature. I want to bring up a scene with you, Jackson. Okay, and this was the scene that I disliked the most in the movie. Okay,
go on.
It's the scene where the two finally become romantic. Okay, I didn't actually see that coming.
It's a gay sex scene.
It's a gay sex scene. I didn't see it. Playing out like that at all. I didn't think there was chemistry there or anything.
It still surprises me on another watch, to be honest.
Yeah. And then once they've done the deed, they wake up a couple of hours later and she's like saying what is she saying?
Silencio.
She's speaking Spanish, isn't she?
Silencio.
So she goes, I need to take you somewhere. It's 2 a.m. in the morning. No, we need to go to this theater. And they go to this theater.
Nothing good happens after 2 a.m.
You would know. And they go to this theater and it's this man saying everything's an illusion. So everything you're hearing is an illusion. So this Spanish lady walks out and sings this rendition of Crying, I believe it is, in Spanish.
It's by Roy Orbison. And quick little Easter egg here for you, Dan. Blue Velvet has a Roy Orbison track, also sung by someone who's miming.
Oh, that's
another
cool.
David Lynch film, which is
cool.
In Dreams. Very infamous scene. We better get to that one quick.
I didn't know that. So they, it's obviously it's all an illusion where this woman is pretending to play this song, but it's all voice recorded. And this scene went on for like 20 minutes. It felt like it went on a while. I wasn't dozing off or anything, but it went on quite a long. Tell me, what does it all mean? I didn't quite get a grasp of that. I mean, obviously, one thing that was it wasn't on the nose, but it was like, is Diane opening up to this dream now? Is she realizing this whole thing is an illusion? That's one thing I guess you could take out of that. But what did you think about that? What did you read into that?
I'm going to jog your own memory. Can you remember what Rita and Betty are wearing?
That's right, the blonde wig, of course.
The blonde wig.
Yeah.
So Rita's illusion, her amnesia, the character doesn't understand it going on in the dream world. Diane's own illusion is now starting to fall to pieces and the curtains are starting to be drawn on this, hence we're at this stage show. We've got Rita now wearing the blonde wig, so she's starting to become Diane, as Diane's cast herself in this victim role, someone who needs support, needs someone strong there for her, which may have actually happened in the real world. And the magician on stage, before this Spanish rendition of Crying starts playing, is repeating lines like, "This is all a recording. This is a tape recording." Now, what's going on with Diane in the dream world isn't necessarily a recording, but we find out through some key lines from someone who might have been a housemate or at least had that apartment before. She says that Diane's been in this apartment for 3 weeks. Has Diane been lying on her bed, maybe in some kind of drug-induced coma, constantly reliving the same dream over and over and over, and it's looping? That's her memory. That's how she wants to remember it. This is her own recording of what may have happened, even though it's not truthful.
Theory.
That's what I read into it as, and everything is an illusion. If we want to look at it at a more meta aspect, then it's kind of playing out how cinema and what happens on the stage on the big screen is an illusion, and that what we may be hearing we can't always trust, and what we may be seeing and what we are believing that we're experiencing as the two women start crying to this performance, well, they kind of stop crying once they realize that the woman's not actually singing. It's a very touching moment, but it's not real.
Why did it have to go on for so long?
It was 5 minutes, but it was a very interesting and very gripping 5 minutes. And
so they obviously they were crying, because they felt the performance and the emotion around it. And then obviously
Or
when...
did they feel the illusion cracking?
Well, why did they stop crying when they knew the illusion had cracked? Is it just as simple as that it wasn't real?
I believe they were coming to they were
Coming to
understanding
terms,
and
yeah.
coming to terms with what was going on. So for them it was no longer moving. It was okay. What's actually going on here? They were confused.
Yeah, right.
Which is very much how we are already. 20 minutes into the pod.
That's a good explanation though. Another one I wanted to talk to you about, Jackson, and this is,
By the way, this is all hearsay. All of this is subjective.
Of course.
David Lynch is notorious for giving next to no clues and giving no solid interpretation.
Has he
of what
ever
any of
given a
his films
solid
mean.
interpretation on this film ever?
Well, he gave us the last 20 minutes, and without that last 20 minutes, we'd have no fucking clue what any of this is.
So he gave us the movie. He gave us the movie, is what you're saying.
Yeah, he gave us the movie, and he didn't have to do that.
What I wa-
Originally, this was meant to be a TV pilot.
I want to talk about one of the opening scenes. These two men are in a Winkies cafe. Is that right?
Yes.
They're talking about this sort of creature out the back. Talk me through your rendition of what that creature, that homeless person, whatever you want to call it, what it symbolizes, what it all means. To me, is that what she becomes by the end? She shoots herself. She shoots herself.
She shits herself?
She shoots herself and becomes this creature out of the bad things that she's done, or what? How do you explain to me your theory around that? I'd love to hear it.
What is the creature holding in the final frames of the movie?
Is it the key?
Almost.
Is it the box?
It's the box.
It's a box.
It's the blue
Okay.
box. A box that doesn't want to be opened.
When she
Now-
opens that box, is because obviously the key is a symbolism of she ordered for Camilla to be killed. She ordered a hit on her, and that key signalized that that was done. So her finally getting the key into the box, is that the realization of what she's done?
Yeah, but why does this creature then have said box? And what happens with the box? What happens when the box is opened in the very end of the film? We know that at one point when the box is opened by Rita and Betty after having been to Club Silencio, that it then takes us into the real world with Diane. But at the very end of the movie, when the box is opened, the older couple who may or may not be grandparents, they could be an aunt and uncle, they're at least an older couple, from the very start of the film, they come crawling out. And did you notice how they're laughing and cackling?
That was disturbing. That was creepy.
Right? That last minute of the movie, the last 60 seconds, is fucking frightening. They're screaming and laughing.
I had to
and
turn
Diane-
it down.
Yeah, right? It's just, it hits you in the face. I love David Lynch
Yeah.
for this. The guy just loves to slap
He's a
you.
freak. He's a dead set freak.
Matches me very well. Anyway, so we've got those two characters coming out, and they're traumatizing, note that T word, traumatizing Diane so much that she finally has to end it all, and she kills herself. Very sad, very tragic. Now, for me, that creature is a symbol of this dark trauma that's lurking within Diane.
Yeah.
And it may be lurking with all of us as audiences, as viewers. A lot of the shots in this movie are point of view shots. Our director, our director of photography or cinematographer, Peter Deming, has worked on movies like Evil Dead 2, which also have very similar point of view shots. And when we see these point of view tracking pieces, that puts us inside the movie. We are inside the characters. So what we're watching and what's happening here, it's not just necessarily from Diane's perspective, but it's from our perspective, how we engage with the movie and engage with the experience. That's what I believe is going on in the blue box. We're going inside Diane's deep, deep depths, and that's held by the person who's hiding within all of us.
And those characters at the start, are they just a figment of... Obviously, they're a figment of her imagination, but where...
Are they? That's a bold call.
Oh, so you think this is at a different timeline? Is that what you're saying?
No, I believe that this older couple...
No.
Oh, hang on. Oh, we're talking about the people at Winkies.
Yeah, the people at Winkies. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, of course. Well, all right. Patrick Fleischer, who's this very odd-looking fellow with the big, thick eyebrows.
Oh, yeah. I recognize him. What is he off?
He's in Mad Men and he's in Lost.
He's in Lost. That's what I was thinking of. Lost.
He also
Yeah,
shows
yeah.
up in season 3 of Twin Peaks. There's another David Lynch project.
He never plays a normal person.
No, but look at the bloke. Nothing against him. He makes for a great character actor. You're not going to forget you saw him on screen.
No. Anyway, go on.
I'm sure he gets paid very well for it. So he shows up towards the very end of the movie when Diane meets the hitman in Winkies, and she sees this man, Patrick Fleischer, standing by the teller. And much earlier on in the movie, when he's speaking about a dream, note that, a dream that he had to his companion.
Yeah.
He saw his companion standing at the teller, and then they finally go outside, and he's scared shitless by this creature living behind the Winkies. Patrick Fleischer, that is Diane.
That is Diane. That's what I was going to say.
That's Diane. That's Diane in her dreamscape, wanting to run away from this trauma that she's
going to eventually become.
Yeah, that she's eventually going to have to face when the gravity of what she may or may not have ordered, who knows if the hit was carried out, actually happens. And again, we don't really know if a hit was done or what this man who gives her the blue key.
Well, it was alluded
really
to,
did.
was it not?
It was, but we see a couple sequences which could be real, might be fake, where he struggles to get this black book. We don't really know why, and kills this man, someone he knows, for a black book, and then shoots through the wall.
What was that scene about? That is another scene. What was I watching, Jackson? I felt like pausing the screen, texting you, and going, "What the fuck have you just made me watch? This doesn't make any sense. These characters are new. What are we watching here, please?"
For any first-time listeners, this probably isn't the best podcast to start with, and you might have wanted to watch this film 6 or 7 times like I have before you get to the nitty-gritty, because it's quite hard to follow. Look, that's a sequence straight out of the original script for the TV pilot. So what we got there might have been expanded on in a TV series that could have followed. Didn't happen. So this...
okay.
That's why it has this kind of bizarre tone and nature. And that
it was out of place, don't you think?
It was. That kind of humor does show up in a lot of David Lynch's other work, particularly his stuff on Twin Peaks, where it's quite jarring. But I love it.
Yeah, interesting. Touching on those older couple and the freaky stuff that they did at the end. When we look back at one of the opening scenes where she's coming to LA.
Betty or Diane?
Betty, yeah, she's here, and I noticed that everything was going her way. Everything was working out. She had this house sorted. A
very
cab.
Hollywood, isn't it? Very much the American dream.
She didn't have to hail a cab; it came to her. Just all this different stuff was going her way, and it just didn't feel real. And even, did you notice that like the dialogue between her and the older woman felt like it was dubbed?
Yes.
Am I wrong?
Absolutely. No, I've got it written down right here.
And that was on purpose.
Yeah, the ADR.
So I actually stopped.
Uncanny.
Yeah, I stopped and I'm like, have they stuffed up here? This dubbing is really bizarre. And then, it didn't happen again. And I'm like, that is really strange. But now looking back, that's a stylistic choice, isn't it?
It is. It reminds me of this kind of falseness that appears in some later sequences, like when Betty has her audition, where everyone kind of just everyone is projecting something that doesn't
putting
quite
on a
feel
face.
real.
Yeah.
It's like there's something else under the surface.
It's like a 50s Hollywood movie. The acting.
Yeah, but it's so dark. When we put the moody score from Angelo Badalamenti underneath,
great score.
It just has you thinking, what's going on? And so after that bizarre dialogue exchange, the older couple are then sitting in, I guess, their own limousine, and they're grinning, and it's very creepy and evil.
Oh, that was weird.
One very dark, significant interpretation is that this might be a grandmother and a grandfather of the real Diane who may have abused her.
Oh, now that is an interesting theory, because I was thinking something like that.
And she mentions at the climactic dinner party in the last 10, 15 minutes of the movie that how she found her way to LA, the city of dreams, was that she did win a jitterbug dance contest. And we see that with the strangers dancing at the very beginning of the film. And
see, I thought they were the judges for that. That was my interpretation.
Yeah, that's interesting. But if they're judges, why do they come back and traumatize her?
Yeah.
For some people, there's got to be something darker. And some of David Lynch's films have dealt with family abuse before. So, real lighthearted family stuff.
Yeah, exactly. What was the situation with the auntie? That wasn't the auntie. That was completely different. I mean, how does she play a role in this? Because she's mentioned a bunch of times.
Aunt Ruth. What does Diane say at the dinner party happened to Aunt Ruth? Can you remember? Feel free to say no. There was a lot getting unpacked in that last 10 minutes.
She dies, correct?
Yes, she died. So Aunt Ruth in the real world had died and left Diane quite a bit of money. But in the dream world, she seems to have quite open communication with Betty. And Betty calls to her, speaks on the phone and says, I found Rita in my apartment. And Aunt Ruth is very concerned. Who is Rita? Who is this person? Why is she there?
And that's obviously a figment. So she was dead the whole time, pretty much. And she had inherited this house. And is that how it plays out, or what?
Yeah, it may have. One interpretation that is stretching quite a bit.
Yeah,
believes that the real Diane may have lived in Aunt Ruth's house after Aunt Ruth had passed and left to her for some time, and having not made much success in Hollywood, she could have sold it. She might have found her way living on the streets or ending up in the other apartment where she finally dies in. We're not really sure. Much of this is very ambiguous.
What's wrong?
I just don't know who I am.
I wonder where you were going. Mulholland Drive. Come on, it'll be just like in the movies. We'll pretend to be someone else.
There's so many scenes to dissect, Jackson. Why don't we head back to the middle section with our sensational cameo from Billy Ray Cyrus and the fight scene between him and Adam Kesha. I felt like the sound effects were obnoxiously loud. Is that just me? Or was that just the movies back then? It was just like that.
No, I believe some of the sound mixing here was done to quite humorous effects.
Yeah,
David Lynch is known for having some of these
it worked. It was funny.
Overt moments. It does. It sticks out, and you're not quite expecting it. In much of his films, you want something a bit more realistic because that's the kind of tone that he goes for.
Yeah.
But to David Lynch, you're watching cinema, and it's meant to be unrealistic.
I'll tell you what. He's making a film for cinephiles, for you and me. Yeah. This isn't a film for the average guy.
It's about movie making. The whole film is about making movies.
It is. It's a film for us. That's why you see a lot of his films weren't a box office success. This one in particular. I mean, on a $14 million budget, I think it didn't return much. So that sort of signalizes to me that he's making it for us in a way. But Jackson, I want to get your theories on a lot of the different scenes here because it's just such a fascinating film to dissect. And one scene that really was a fascinating scene, Jackson, where David Lynch just switches what we thought was going to happen in a split second. She's auditioning for this role.
Oh, my favorite.
Yeah.
With the scene, Betty's coming in. She's auditioning for this role that Coco has managed to get the script for.
Yeah,
and it's going to be a line read from Aunt Ruth's friend Wally, and we later find out that this is like a third-rate production. That Wally's never going to get this movie made. That it's not much of a project. But for Betty, it represents this amazing opportunity. This is her first real chance at stardom. She's won the Jitterbug contest, and she wants to give this her all. She knows the script is a little trite, and we first see her rehearsing it at home with Rita, and Rita's just kind of line reading, going through it, and Betty's giving it a little bit, but who knows? You hit the nail on the head. The scene starts, and it's this weird atmosphere. It's very unreal. It's very reminiscent of walking into a job interview, kind of a corporate boardroom where everyone's just kind of putting on a face, and everyone's
judging you.
Yeah, and everyone's keeping their cards close to their chest. What's interesting to consider is the director's name, Bob. Bob seems a little inept, and he doesn't really speak up. He's very vague, and he only responds and says anything when somebody speaks to him.
Well, she does this incredible performance, and he says, "Yeah, it was good." I mean,
he says it was humanistic. What do you reckon that means?
I couldn't believe what I was. Maybe that obviously represents her talent being just swept away by the powers that be, doesn't it?
It does. So if Betty actually represents Camilla, we find out in the real world that Camilla, her first big breakthrough role, which she got great reviews for, was in a project called The Sylvia North Story. And it was directed by a man called Bob Brooker. And Bob Brooker didn't think all that much of Camilla, but he cast her and she got good reviews. But he absolutely didn't think all that much of Diane in the real world. Inside the dream sequence audition, when Betty starts, but just before, you mentioned that Wally says something about, oh yeah, we've had it's the older actor who looks like he's just been pulled out of his night job being an old leather couch. He's got this disgusting tan looking skin. I mean, it's perfect for the scene. Again,
He looks like a
actor.
golfer with a mansion to go home to.
He looks like he's been in the tanning bed just a couple years too long.
Yeah.
Yeah, he mentions that, oh, this will be like all the other ones, and he's clearly trying to dominate and take control of this younger actress, which is a little frightening because the scene that
It
you're
is, isn't it?
reading is all about taking control of a girl.
And as
who
an
may or may
audience
not be a
member,
teenager.
you're thinking, geez, don't give in to this guy. He's a creep.
He's so slimy. What a
He's
greaseball.
so slimy. He is. And
David
then,
Lynch has this knack for making these greaseball, sleazy characters.
Oh,
Just wait until you get into his other movies.
Oh, really? Yeah, and I'm just thinking, oh, geez, this isn't good. This is taking it way too far. This isn't acting. This is getting onto sexual predatory grounds. And then he subverts our expectations, and she goes in. She starts
flips
dominating
the table completely. Betty
Incredible.
absolutely tears it apart. She has this older actor, Woody. She has Woody grab her ass, and she starts kissing him, and he's clearly moved.
She
by the
forces him
performance.
to touch his ass. He pulls away, and she says, "No, go for it."
He's clearly wanting to push some boundaries, and she's thinking, all right, I'm going to do whatever I can to get this role. And it's that attitude, I'm going to do whatever it takes. That kind of thing within Hollywood, especially when we talk about in contemporary times with the Me Too movement, it's a bit frightening.
Oh yeah, that's definitely gone on in Hollywood, and yeah, it is very frightening, isn't it? It's very.
One question to consider here: did talent help the real Camilla Rhodes? If Camilla had this audition in the real world, which Diane tells at the dinner party that she did, and that Diane didn't do very well, and Camilla did because she went the extra mile, is this something that might have actually happened?
I think so. That's what I read into it.
And chances are Diane was there to see it, and that's why she's casting Betty, who's
correct,
who's in the dream world, as having done this. And there's a line of dialogue there where Wally mentioned, oh, I wonder if we're going to play this like that dark-haired girl who came in earlier.
Right, I didn't think of that.
Right?
That's cool.
Hey, come on, man. 8th or 9th watch here, so going back and listening to these bits of dialogue...
This is the stuff you pick up on.
Blowing your mind.
Yeah. This is stuff you pick up on. It's the same with The Prestige. And that's why I love that film. So I'm definitely going to rewatch it, Jack. There's no doubt about it. Maybe not tonight or tomorrow. Give me a few months, because it is. It's
a tough watch.
It's a tough It is a tough watch. Seriously.
You know what though? 146 minutes. You told me just after you were wrapped up, it was a breeze, and it does fly by.
That's weird. How can I say it's a tough watch and then say it breezes by? It doesn't make sense. But here I am. I don't know. Another scene.
Nothing makes sense in this world, mate.
Yeah, true. I'd fit in well. I want to another scene before we get into some behind the scenes that you've got and how this was made, Jackson. One other thing I wanted you to talk us through is the scene where Adam Kesher walks into this boardroom and there's a bunch of. I mean,
yeah. I'm laughing already.
it's just a staple of this movie, man. It's really crazy. He's going back and forth, and it's just the weirdest exchanges. And we see this.
I'm pretty sure Justin Theroux is acting in a different movie compared to everyone else in that scene.
I know, that's a
I think every line
perfect
of
summary.
dialogue is,
That is
what are
a
you talking
perfect
about?
summary.
Where is
man.
this going? I don't know what you're talking about. Can you just tell me what's going on? I think that was he might have just captured your live commentary as you watch this 2.5 hour epic.
It's another scene that feels sort of out of place. But talk me through what was going on, Because I seriously do not know. Right now, I seriously still do not know what happened in that scene, what it meant, who was the overarching figure that looked like Mini-Me. That guy, I can't recall his name. He was
Mr. Roke.
Mr. Roke. He was like some sort of final boss in a game that you'd verse with his little henchman in the back. I mean,
maybe you should do a compilation video how you beat Mr.
Tell me can you explain to me and our listeners what was going on in that scene?
All right, let's talk about Mr. Roke for a second here. So Mr. Roke was played by Michael J. Anderson, who featured quite heavily in Twin Peaks, which is a TV series that David Lynch had created and most recently did a third season of a couple of years ago. Michael J. Anderson seems to be he is quite a small man. He might only be standing, 3.5, not even 4 foot tall. And he seems to be wearing like an adult-sized person's suit. Gives this real uncanny feel. You said he looks like a final boss, and he's got this tiny head and then these really elongated limbs. Anyway, he's speaking to people in a room through, some kind of intercom, and seems to be calling people off a headset as well. Mr. Roke is pulling all the strings. He's the powers that be in Hollywood. He's the one twisting all the knobs, pushing all the buttons. He's driving this machine. In this scene, he needs Camilla Rhodes cast in this movie. It has to be this girl. This is the girl. This is the girl. This is the girl. This is the girl. And Adam Kesher, well, he's summoned to this meeting. He's got no clue what's going on. It's not in the film, but a deleted scene shows that he was actually coming from the golf course, which might explain the golf club. I just like to think that there's a 9-9 there, because why the hell not? It's a David Lynch movie. And he's meeting there with his manager, Ray, and Ray is trying to calm Adam down. I mean, Ray's very much in cahoots with all these other nefarious-looking characters. And then we get the Castigliani brothers? Yeah, the Castigliani brothers. One of them is Dan Hedaya, who you might have recognized from some other movies. He's always playing these evil, creepy-looking characters. And then the other Italian-looking fellow who spits out the coffee. Don't know what's going on there, but he spits out the coffee. He is actually the composer of the film, Angelo Badalamenti.
I knew that. I recognized him. I was looking at the IMDb later on, and I didn't put two and two together.
After having watched this movie 9 times, which being nearly 3 hours long, probably means I've spent close to a day of my life watching it. I still can't tell you quite what the coffee is. I don't know why they've gone through so many drops of espresso, and I guess
you still can't. That's the one thing I was going to ask you about that scene. You can't tell me? Oh my god! Shit.
I suppose being Italian, that I don't know, they've got some affinity to coffee. But look, coffee shows up in a lot of David Lynch's work, particularly Twin Peaks. There's a famous quote from Agent Dale Cooper, played by Kyle MacLachlan, where he says that a cup of coffee is a damn fine cup of coffee.
Is it just an Easter egg then to that?
I think it's just a bit of a nod and just a bit of a laugh that, to this guy Luigi, well, it's not a damn fine cup of coffee, and he spits it out. And that just kind of throws this whole scene into chaos. Everyone but Adam Kesher seems to be thinking, oh my God, if he doesn't like this coffee, all hell is going to break loose. And sure enough, it does. But Adam's threatened, you have to do this, you have to do this. He says, well, it's my movie, it's not yours. And Dan Hedaya gives us his famous line reading of, it's no longer your film.
Oh, that was brilliant. That was a classic line.
Which, you know what, I've actually had to go back and watch that with subtitles. And it wasn't until I read the screenplay that actually pick up on what he was saying. It's just this bizarre little close-up. And they even share these, again, more extreme close-ups of shot reverse shot between Adam's eyes and Dan Hedaya's eyes. It's really bizarre stuff. Adam then heads down in the elevator, smashes up their car with his 9-9 and races off.
And obviously his bank gets cut off, and all the repercussions of him not rebelling, the powers that be, I guess that's suggesting there's a higher power, like in Hollywood, how there's distributors always, looking over projects, making sure, they're going smoothly and they're going to get their money back. It's all that sort of political stuff that is being shown here, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a poison. And how we interpret this to Diane, as this is her dream world, well, for her, she may see that her lack of success and what Camilla received isn't fair. That's why she casts Rita as this damsel in distress, and that's why she casts Adam as having this film and having control pulled away from him, because that's how she feels about her own life and about how her own acting career has played out, that there was no way she was ever going to be a starlet because there's these external evil forces in Hollywood that just that wrote people in and spit them back out.
It's funny how this film is so different to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where in
That's a weird one to reference.
I mean, no, because that's a love letter to Hollywood, and in much respect, this film is how poisonous Hollywood is, how bad it is.
Complete opposite.
It's a complete opposite. It makes me feel like all those terrible box office returns that David Lynch has succumbed to has really got into him to the point where
I think he
hates
really
Hollywood.
He had a really rough trot when it came to making Dune, and then he's been scarred ever since. Look, David Lynch clearly loves Hollywood. He set this film here in LA, the City of Angels, or the City of Dreams, as he loves to call it. And he's also named the film after a real street in Hollywood, Mulholland Drive. And it's interesting to consider how I've driven down Mulholland Drive. I'm not sure if you have, but Mulholland Drive, particularly at night, is this very long and twisting and winding road. And you as you're going along it, you have this interesting view of the whole of the hills, and you kind of feel like sometimes that you're about to go careening off it. It's very tight. It's despite having it's single lane, but having cars going each way, you feel like you're about to fall off. It's a great way for summing up the whole film.
Even in the opening shots where Rita is walking alone, you get the sense of this isn't a safe place.
No, and we're dead in the middle of the night. She does, however, also stumble across Sunset Boulevard, a more famous Hollywood street, which also served the inspiration for a 1950s film by Billy Wilder, which David Lynch certainly loves.
You want to know who you are, don't you?
Dan, what happens to the look of this movie once we leave the dream world and we enter the reality where we see Diane in her apartment? How does the movie look?
So I noticed that the movie was very shiny and very glowy like in certain parts in that opening and as we head on, and then towards the end it changed, didn't it? The look of it changed. I don't know what it was. Was there a filter on it? Was there a color correction change, or was it just the colors and the palette that have been used?
The image gets a whole lot sharper and everything gets a bit grimier, more realistic.
Yeah.
It's changed because originally this project was a TV pilot. This was screened for ABC, who almost a decade prior had allowed David Lynch to make 2 seasons of the famous Twin Peaks show, which I highly recommend. If anyone can get through the very interesting pilot episode for that, they'll certainly have a great watch. And the 3rd season that came out a couple of years ago is some of the most the most fascinating TV you've ever seen.
Sorry to cut you off there, Jackson. Twin Peaks, how many seasons are there? Because there's a recent season or movie came out 2016 or something.
Yeah.
Do I need to go back all the way to 1980 to watch the start and make my way all the way through? Can I drop in later on? What do you recommend?
What I recommend, if you want to go back and watch Twin Peaks, is that give the pilot episode a go, which is 2 episodes in one. It goes for about an hour and a half. It feels very much like a TV movie. And if you like the style, if you love some of the themes, the first half is bit of an interesting watch. It sets up a whole lot, but it's not all that entertaining. The second half of the first episode is fantastic, and from that point on, you're totally hooked. Go back, give that a watch. If you get through the first couple seasons 2 isn't so good, you then get a prequel movie, Fire Walk with Me, which is probably David Lynch's most divisive film. That came out in about 1993. And then we have The Return, which came out a couple years earlier. So the strangest 18 hours of TV ever.
Can you watch those 2 films without seeing the TV series and still get everything?
No.
Yeah, I thought so.
Look, all right, nose pretty bold. Could you watch Twin Peaks Fire Walk with me and enjoy it? Yes. Does it work much better when viewed alongside the TV series? Absolutely.
Okay.
I still think it's a great project and very overlooked, very underrated. A lot of modern and contemporary audiences have gone back, watched Fire Walk with Me, and gone, "Wow, the critics really got this wrong." So that's almost a masterpiece. Very similar themes covered as this movie too. So if we then look at this project, Mulholland Drive, as its own TV standalone series, weird to think where some of these scenes have gone. Pretty much everything before we enter the real world was originally shot in 1999 and put in this pilot. reading the screenplay for it, there's a couple bits of dialogue, a few lines here and there, and I believe one scene with Betty and another character we never meet that gets cut out. Otherwise, everything is really in the movie. The Hitman, no idea where that would have gone. The Blue Box, no idea where that would have gone. But that's why the look of this certainly changes. Is after the TV series pilot was rejected, well, David Lynch still had all this footage. He sat on it for a couple years, and eventually some French finances, Studio Canal, managed to hand him $7 million and said, "Hey, Europe, we love your work. We want you to continue this. Finish it. We know you want to." And sure enough,
is that why? You're kidding?
That is why we got this movie.
That is crazy.
It was a TV pilot that never happened. For David Lynch, TV and film were one in the same, and that's how this movie came about. Is that it was lucky enough to be revived, and that's why in those final 20 minutes, some of the characters might even look a bit different. Going back and rewatching it, knowing this, it puts this real odd take on it. And it's funny because the last 20 minutes give you so many clues. It's odd to think how long this TV show might have gone for and how much of it might have been revealed.
Do you think it would have been better as a TV series?
That's a tough call. That's a really tough call. Because of how it exists today as a 2.5 hour movie.
I think it was better purpose as a film.
I'm going to agree with you there. Considering how Twin Peaks turned out, the second season has some stinker episodes. I'm quite happy that this is a 2.5 hour watch.
This would have ultimately been, let's say it was 10 episodes. Let's just hypothetically say it was 10 episodes. We wouldn't have got that reveal to the last episode. It would have been 9 long episodes. I think it was better served as a 2-hour dream sequence into that last 20 minutes or whatever it was. So that I'm happy that it went like that, but I did not know that fact that you just said. That's actually really put a different spin on things.
Yeah, and you've got to consider as well that 1999 TV is not what it is now, not what it was a few years ago when we had TV like Breaking Bad, The Walking Dead, and Game of Thrones riding high. In fact, TV these days with services with Netflix, Hulu, we have Stan here in Australia as well, getting bigger audiences right now, definitely in lockdown than the cinemas do. If this was a TV series now, I don't know. I'd certainly still watch it.
It'd be on HBO, I could tell you right now.
Yeah, well, the Twin Peaks Return, that was actually on Showtime.
Oh, yeah. What about Jackson, the cowboy?
Here we go.
We talked a little bit off air about the cowboy and his role in it. My interpretation is a simple one. It's literally she sees this cowboy passing by in that final dinner scene at that party. You do see the cowboy very shortly, very quickly go by, and you get a glimpse of him. Literally, to me, she's gotten him from her imagination and placed him in this dream sequence, and that's
okay. I've got a hot take for you.
Go on.
Is he a spirit? Is he a ghost or something else from another dimension? Does he?
Oh God!
He could represent trauma, but he could represent something else altogether entirely, something ethereal, something otherworldly. When Adam Kesher meets the cowboy, after exchanging some very bizarre things about truthfulness and your attitude, he says to Adam Kesher, "You will see me one more time if you do good. You will see me 2 more times if you do bad." How many more times after this initial meeting do we see the cowboy in the movie?
I believe it was 1 more time.
At the dinner party?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there is a blink and you'll miss it, but when we enter Diane Selwyn's apartment, after going through the box, the cowboy shows up on screen and he says, "Hey, pretty girl, it's time to wake up."
That's right, of course.
And it actually flashes black in and out. And we see him twice. We see him the first time and he's smiling. And when it fades to black and comes back in, he's then looking sad and says to her, hey there, pretty girl, it's time to wake up. So we see him twice in the same scene. And we've seen him once in the film now after the initial meeting. And we see him again during the dinner party. So he shows up twice in the one scene and a second time. So we have seen him twice. We know then for sure that Diane Selwyn has done bad. David Lynch hasn't shied away from spiritual themes and having people act as avatars from things from another world. So I believe this could be another
You
representation
reckon he's a ghost or some sort of spiritual being?
Oh, mate,
yeah, you never know.
It's completely open.
David Lynch, Jesus, mate, you've made us think long and hard about this one, but I guess that's why we do it, Jackson.
He split my brain apart, that's for sure.
Oh, I don't know how I'm going to get through some of his... Like, I looked at a comment, and they're like, if David Lynch films were a game, okay, Elephant Man's easy level, normal is Blue Velvet, hard difficulty is Mulholland Drive, expert is Inland Empire. Inland Empire, you and me will meet one day, maybe when I'm old and grey and much more wise.
Here's a great quote I've got from Adam Kesher. Here we go. It's been that kind of day. And that's somebody's quote.
Yeah. Oh, isn't this movie quotable?
Oh, I mean, every line is just oozing with subtext.
I
don't know how he did it.
No, this is a really good... It's an original screenplay, isn't it?
It's an original screenplay by David Lynch, who wrote and directed. And like I mentioned, pretty much everything we see in the first 2 hours was meant to be on TV. This was too good for TV in the late 90s.
Man, what sort of awards did this pick up?
This picked up a Best Director nom for David Lynch, which is the third time he'd been directed at the Academy Awards, and he didn't win that one. He would go on and receive an Academy Honorary Award. Was last year, wasn't it, Dan? The most recent ceremony.
He won an honorary award for the 2019 Academy Awards. I guess that's the show that we don't see televised, because I don't remember he was on it. But we are touching on the Oscars, Jackson. We are definitely going to do a prediction show.
Already? Well, we're not going to have anything else released cinematically, so let's get the predictions out there right away.
Well, we're still time, but I mean, in the future, Golden Globes, you name it, we're going to do some predictions and see who goes on top. Because as you know, I did some for the Oscars this year, and I did all right, 20 out of 24. I mean, that's pretty commendable, Jackson. Come on. You didn't pick JoJo as adapted. Anyway.
No comment.
Favorite scene, Jackson, in Mulholland Drive? Hit me with it.
It has to be the audition for the Sylvia North story.
Mm.
So everything that plays out from when Betty walks into the room to do the line reading with Woody, and then bleeds into the two musical sequences. I mean, it's like 10 minutes of perfect filmmaking right there. It's haunting, chilling, uncomfortable, completely subverts expectations. It's just fantastic. Hey, I've just come up with this. Imagine this is a double bill feature. Mulholland Drive and La La Land.
La La Land. Interesting. That'd be a long double feature.
Which would you watch first?
Jesus, probably La La Land, funnily enough. I'd probably tackle that first, because I only ever saw that once in theatres and loved it. But,
right, there we go.
But
by the way, Naomi Watts' performance, not just in the audition scene, but across the film, wow, powerhouse stuff.
She was a standout for me throughout this film, Naomi. She really, I wouldn't say she carried the film or anything like that, but she put in a hell of a performance and didn't get any recognition for it either, which was stunning to me looking at some of the other candidates.
Absolutely. Dan, what was your favourite scene? What stuck out to you?
Look, I have to agree with you, Jackson. I want to come up with something different for the sake of the podcast, but I can't, because that is my favourite scene. It really is. It turned the tables on us as an audience members and it just flipped the switch. It was something much like a lot of the film. It subverts expectations for what you think the character will do in the situation and does something different. And the acting in that scene, it was powerful. It was very confronting. It was weird, as we said. It was just a very memorable scene, and one that we'll look back on and always remember. And that's the sign of a good screenplay and a good scene. So,
fantastic filmmaking.
Yeah. All right, Jackson, I think we've really covered this film a lot. Is there anything else? I mean,
well, I've got 10 pages of notes. So, if
what
you
do we
miss a 3-hour epic? Why not?
What are we missing?
So we saw an interesting font there used in some of the credits. What did it remind you of?
The credits. By the time the credits came up, Jackson, I was passed out, fainted from what I'd just watched. So you're gonna have to Tell me.
They look like the Hollywood sign.
Yeah,
What an
I
interesting-
noticed
what an
that. That
interesting way
was
to
cool.
Set up the picture. Oh, I noticed that, of course.
No, I did.
All right, you're right. I'm throwing you under the bus. Okay, cool. Hey, let's
Look,
move
you
on.
can throw me under the bus. Honestly, it's a first watching in a film. I think I did all right taking in
You've done
what I
you've done
did.
you've done
Honestly,
a splendid job.
come on, Jackson. First viewing, I'm going all right. I'd love
You
to
did
see
it.
some other people what they took from this film. First viewing. There was a lot of tidbits to this film, Jackson, that was
A lot
fascinating.
of tidbits.
A lot of tidbits and tidbitties that were fascinating. Why don't we head into our final ratings, final thoughts, Jackson?
Please get us out of this hellish dream.
Please
Please get us out of this hellish
This is
nightmare.
such a weird one to rate because it's such a bizarre film, one of the weirdest I've ever seen. It builds up to this weird final 20 minutes that you're just trying to put the piece of the puzzle together the whole time. I don't know, it just, for me, it's a tough one to rate. I see a lot of 10 out of 10s out there. To me, it didn't quite hit that mark of a masterpiece, but it was definitely very well put together and a very good film and one that I'll watch again. For me, it is going to be an 8 out of 10, Jackson.
An 8 out of 10.
8 out of 10. I think that's a good rating. I mean, that's a great movie on my scale. So maybe, look, honestly, upon a rewatch or two, that'll probably get bumped up. But for now, it's an 8 out of 10. And we might revisit it maybe in the future, Jackson. What are your final thoughts?
We've got so much more that we could possibly say. We should go over this again. Dan, you heard it here first. Last week, The Prestige, your first ever 10. This week, my first ever 10 out of 10, baby. 10 out of 10 boxes that should never be opened.
Woo!
Naomi Watts,
10 out of
Laura
10,
Herring,
Jackson.
Justin Theroux, all hit it out of the park. Especially Naomi Watts. Wow, she arrived with this movie. And David Lynch, look, put his name on a picture, and it's going to be a high rating from me.
What are you doing?
Get out of the car. Yeah. The girl is still missing.
Fantastic. 10 out of 10 from Jackson, 8 out of 10 from me. That is a letterbox score of 9 out of 10. Is that our highest? That's up there with Jojo Rabbit now.
That's equal footing with Jojo Rabbit.
So they're our top two at the
High
moment.
praise.
Who's going to get the first two 10s? Who's it going to be, Jackson? I got a couple in
It
mind.
could be the movie we put off from last week. Who knows?
Ooh, the audience will have to find out next week when we review Parasite. But guys, thanks for tuning in to this one. Before we head off, as usual, we're going to talk about what we watched this week. But Jackson, we're going to review Parasite, of course, next.
Really?
After
Are we not
that-
going to call another audible and push it back again?
I think we're going to have to commit to what the poll came out with. We asked them
people
1917 or Parasite. It was overwhelming Parasite. So we're going to have to deliver the goods. I've got a lot to say on Parasite, so it's going to be a fun podcast. It could go as long as this one. I mean, we could have honestly gone for 3 hours here if we wanted to, but I'm just trying to scale us back at the time. Maybe in future we'll go full into it, but
I reckon we could do a watch along commentary of this.
that'd be a very interesting video to make, wouldn't it? A watch along. Why don't we do a watch along to Batman vs Superman?
That's
All right,
that's
moving
3 hours
on.
of my life I'll
Jackson.
never get back.
What did you watch this week?
This week, Dan, I watched Tromeo and Juliet.
My God, I never know what's going to come out of your mouth with what you've watched this week. I could never predict. Seriously. The films that you watch, you've got so many on your watch list, some incredible movies that you haven't seen. What does he choose to watch?
Tromeo and Juliet, of course. Another from the longest running independent cinema in the world, Troma Entertainment.
Tell me about it.
Tromeo and Juliet, a modern day Z-grade, gross, disgusting retelling of Shakespeare's classic Romeo and Juliet. This one was written and mostly directed by James Gunn. James Gunn, of course, having written and directed the Guardian of the Galaxy films.
We all know
And you know
him.
what? Despite having next to no budget and despite having almost no taste, it's hilarious. It's a lot of fun. There's actually some pretty decent acting, and it even gives us a happy ending, something Shakespeare's tragedy never did. For me, 6 out of 10, mutant, incestuous children.
What made you come to this film? Because it was his first ever film that he worked on, first ever feature. What drew you to this film? It's not like it's a film everyone talks about. I mean, I'm looking at IMDb. It's got 5,000 ratings at a 6 out of 10. It's definitely not lighting a house on fire.
Look, anything that starts with the shitty looking presented by Troma Entertainment, I'm pretty much on board, mate. You put that on there, I'm going to watch your 90 minutes of hell.
I know why. You're looking for 90-minute films recently. You've been looking for the tight experiences because you can't commit to a 2.5 hour. As after Interstellar and this, you are just burnt out, aren't you?
Look, I just want something a little different. You've got to broaden your horizon, cleanse your palate. You can only watch so many 3 hour,
so many long hauls
before you got to wash it out with a bit of schlock. Okay.
Yeah. All right. So you're not recommending it to our viewers, to our audience?
Nudity. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm going to recommend it.
Okay.
Be warned, if you don't like it and you do start throwing up, that's not on me. You chose to watch it.
So this is a really grimy, dirty experience.
I'm not going to go into too much because I want you to sit down one day and we can do another 2-hour epic on it.
Is it R-rated?
Yeah, look, it's probably banned.
Oh, now I know why you watched it. You were by yourself on Easter. All right, moving on.
It was late at night.
Okay.
Just like Rita and Betty, I woke up at 2 a.m.
Oh, Jesus.
I had to get my fix.
Oh, Jesus Christ. We're going to get banned. Ourselves. I watched a very, very different film to you, Jackson. The Peanut Butter Falcon, starring Shia LaBeouf and Dakota Johnson. Have you watched this film, heard about it?
I had not heard anything about it until you mentioned the title all of 10 seconds ago.
Very feel-good movie, I guess you could say. About Shia LaBeouf seems to play a lot of similar characters these days. He's a down on his luck fisherman. On his luck, Shia LaBeouf. Haven't heard that one before. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. He meets this Down syndrome boy and they go on this journey to find this wrestling school. And it's not what I expected at all, but it's a nice ride, tight package. I'd recommend it to pretty much everyone. There's comedy, there's heartfelt moments. Didn't light the house on fire. I know I've said that like 6 times today. Didn't light the house on fire, but it was a good experience. So I'd recommend it. Probably a 7 out of 10, but I think a lot of people would go higher. Maybe I'm harsh, but the Peanut Butter Falcon, check it out. 7 out of 10 from me.
Listeners, check out from Dan, the Peanut Butter Falcon, from me, Tromeo and Juliet. Be sure to let us know across our social media what you thought and what you thought of this podcast too. We'd love to engage and hear some of your feedback at Dan Allen Movies and at MarshallOnFilm_. Dan, who is the sponsor for this week's episode?
It's Displate.
Displate! Oh, of course. How could I have forgotten? I've got them right over my wall here. So Displate, thank you very much for sponsoring this week's episode. Displate, gallery quality printed images on metal. These look fantastic in the home, office, in your studio, anywhere around the house. They're very impressive. You can get all kinds of media across Displate, from gaming, like I can see right now on Dan's webcam while we do this remotely. You can get movies, all kinds of pop culture. Now, Displate are fantastic looking prints. They're not cruddy, but they come in at quite the affordable price. Displate have a very easy to hang up method as well. Displate won't require you to have any strips or hammers or tools. You simply put them on the wall and they are there for life. We will have a link in the description of this pod so that you can go in and make your purchases from Displate. They support us. We support them. We'd love for you to support us as well by using this link. Hey, while you're there, maybe take a look at some of David Lynch's work. I'm sure that they have something on Mulholland Drive, Twin Peaks, Blue Velvet, and maybe even Dune as well. I believe Dune's being remade and was meant to drop this year, but God ever knows if that's coming out.
I can't wait for that film. I really can't, Jackson.
We should rewatch David Lynch.
We're going to rewatch it for sure. a week before the new one comes out, and then we'll go straight into the new one. I can't wait.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for Display, and thank you to our listeners for hanging around.
Beautiful guys. Appreciate you tuning in again. If you made it this far, you're an absolute legend. We will talk to you soon.
We can't wait to return next week for Parasite. Thanks for listening. Be sure to follow us on all social media. We've got Letterboxd, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter @WeWatchThisPodcast. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, guys.